Hey everybody, what's going on? I am Galaxy. Welcome to another video. We got another build today. Now, this is like the third installment, I think, in our Graveborn builds. Now, I'm trying to go through and do a class of every archetype, all the combinations. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the videos and you know, browse around, see if there's anything you'll like. I got lots of stuff on the channel already for the game and a lot of things to come. So yeah, just make sure to check that out and hit up any of the other builds if, you know, for some reason this one isn't for you or it seems like you don't have the stuff for it or anything like that. Now, to start off, just going to kill some enemies for you guys to show you how this really works before we get into the build too much. Now, I like to farm Droll here for the beginning just to show you guys how the build works. Also, I will just proof right there, Chaos 20. I like to farm Droll, I think, because he has like a lot of a good mix of different types of enemies here to show off the build. So you can see how the build works on smaller enemies as well as like some medium and bigger ones. Because yeah, there's a troll. So let me pop this and my abilities. Just get my alt back. There we go. Pop that. Pop the Buffmeister. Destroy that guy. Absolutely destroy that guy. What we got left? Oh, sucks to be a goblin in these times. Oh, Droll has spawned. Let me just get our stuff back. Pop these abilities. Liquid cooling. Or there's even other options if you don't use the liquid cooling. And I know he was just an obelisk boss, but we will get into some regular bosses later to show you guys how the build actually performs on like story bosses. But as far as even just obelisk bosses goes, you literally just you cut through them like warm butter. Now, like usual, I'm going to go ahead and start with the guns and gear. I'm going to start with the top priority things first, the things that the build mainly runs off of, and then we'll just go down from there, talking about what you can use if you don't have all some of these things, or what enchantments you're going to need. Now, the number one thing, I'm sure you guys have seen this before, you're going to need a liquid cooling. You're going to want to get a ×2 version, and obviously a chaotic or a volatile will increase its damage past that. So just get a ×2 liquid cooling. That'll be plenty enough, but if you can get a chaotic or a higher version, obviously go for that. We've got the enchantment on spellcast, increased frost damage by 30% for 5 seconds, which is great because we're popping the Buffmeister constantly, which will always have that buff applied to your liquid cooling. Next up, we're going to have the Masterwork Handbow. I have this one. Actually, it's my only volatile legendary still in the game. Got quite a lot of playtime on this, and my only volatile legendary is this handgun here. I also then rolled it to where on spellcast I increased damage by 15% for 10 seconds, which is another one of those ones where we're going to be popping the Buffmeister at all times. So during that 10 seconds, you're going to be doing even more damage than it already is. 3,130, by the way, in case you didn't peep that damage number, which is absolutely crazy. Now, what the handbow does is it has one ammo in the magazine. You can see the magazines. There is only one, but whenever you land a critical hit, it instantly refunds that ammo. So as long as you're hitting critical hits, the gun never runs out of magazine, which obviously is going to work really well whenever we're running from the shadows to where you enter stealth mode and have a 100% chance to hit critical hits. Also, the damage does slightly ramp whenever you're using this because crossbolts stuck in enemies deal 3% increased damage for each crossbolt stuck in that enemy, and they last for 3 seconds. So however many bullets you can shoot over the course of 3 seconds with the Buffmeister up and your Fade from the Shadows will increase the damage there. So it'll start good and it'll finish even better. Also, I should mention that the liquid cooling runs really well with From the Shadows as well, because this is a bandit weapon, or Skulldugger if you're playing Wonderlands. Of course you are, but if you're new to the series here in Wonderlands, these guns have no magazine size, but as you can see down there, it has shots to break, which is it just has a heat up. If you stand here and you just hold the trigger, you can see the bottom right there where my ammo is. It's going to heat up, and then it's eventually going to need liquid cooled or reloaded. But as we're constantly going to be dealing crits and we're constantly going to be in From the Shadows, you never have to actually reload this weapon. So these two guns are going to be the main ones and necessities for the build. They're pretty easy to get. You can get these both. I believe they both drop from obelisk bosses, which are some of the easier ones to get. So just farm them a little bit. I'll put cards on the screen now to videos for them once I get those videos completed. So you guys can just click on those and it'll take you there and you can get that taken care of. As far as the 3rd and 4th slot goes, I'm going to recommend the Gluttony, just kind of like I do in all my builds because I like the gun a lot. And since we are half Graveborn, the dark magic damage really helps with a little sustainability for our life, as you can just throw one of these out or two, and then you're dealing dark magic damage and restoring your health, even though you're using these other guns that are either frost or just neutral damage. Plus, the gun itself doesn't do bad damage anyways. And for the last weapon, just go ahead and use whatever you want. Something with high fire rate, just whatever your preference is. With the other guns that you have, these three, that'll be plenty enough to take care of whatever you're going to run into. So just find something that you like or you already have that you like, and go ahead and toss that on. Now, along with the liquid cooling and the Masterwork Handbow, you're really going to need to get a goblin pickaxe. Now, you're going to want to get this not because melee is really that great, honestly, or because of the gold ability, but because the melee attacks restore 5% of your action skill cooldown. Now, without this, the absolute main weakness of this build is the cooldown rate of From the Shadows. Now, with the cooldown from that being the way it is, and even with like some cooldown help, it's still not very fast. But if you throw on a pickaxe, you could just start going ham meleeing stuff. I'm sure you guys saw me doing that earlier. That's why I was meleeing people. Just every time you hit somebody with this, your action skill cooldown goes down by 5%. Here, I'll show you guys here on these two goblins. Let me get my stuff to run out. Yeah, so once that runs out and you need to recharge it, you can just start meleeing the crap out of people. As you guys can see, the bar of my thing over there just filling up. Oh, I ended up killing him. But look, we already got 5 seconds back on that, when in all reality, there was a 36-second cooldown. And then as far as the gear down here goes, the number one thing that you're going to want to get for this build that you'll have to really make all of the pieces come together is this plate mail. Now what this does is convert 30% of Fate Maker's damage dealt to dark magic damage, and dark magic efficiency is increased by 30%. This is really going to help with bringing the Graveborn's skill tree into play and making good use of that. Plus, the rolls I have on this are 17.8% all damage, 30% gun damage, and 35% gun critical hit chance, as well as 35% Stabbomancer power, and that class mod also is giving me personally +3 to swift death, which increases my damage at different movement speeds. I'll explain more of that in a second when we get to the skills. So yeah, the main things to make the build work are going to be this Masterwork Handbow, the liquid cooling, the goblin pickaxe, or I think you can get a couple other things with the melee attacks restore 5% of your action skill cooldown roll, but I'll recommend the goblin pickaxe and this plate mail class mod with the 30% of damage dealt to dark magic damage. That being said, feel free to use whatever spell you guys like. I'll be using the Buffmeister, of course. I'm sure you guys have heard of the Buffmeister by now. We're not going to be doing any exploits or anything with it. We're just using it as is. This one adds 171 dark magic damage to our things. Just in case you haven't heard of the Buffmeister, here I'll go ahead and show you. So this is my running speed. This is my shooting speed. Let me show you my reloading speed. This is my reloading speed. But whenever we pop the Buffmeister, this is my new running speed. This is my new shooting speed and or reload speed. And it's not going to hurt you to get a good enchantment on it. Right here, I have on action skill start, increased damage dealt by 20% for 20 seconds. So every time we pop from the shadows, we're just going to get another 20% damage for 20 seconds, which is actually even going to last longer than the ability itself. We'll have that 20 seconds up. Next up, for the amulet, you're going to want to get a Theurge. So what this does is reduces your remaining action skill cooldown by 20% whenever you cast a spell. And then while your action skill is on cooldown, spell damage is increased by 30%. Also, the rolls I got on this one were pretty good for me. I got another 30% Graveborn power and 35% frost damage, which is going to couple, again, really well with the liquid cooling. Now, I know amulets are kind of a hard thing to go for, so I'm not going to tell you guys to go get this exact one. Obviously, I'm kind of explaining how the build works, so you guys can make sure that you use the best amulet that you have that correlates with a lot of the other things we're using, as in, you know, spell cooldown or frost damage or just gun damage, something like that. For the shield, we're using one of my favorites, the Trick Mirror, just because it has a 75% chance to reflect bullets and arrows at attackers and nearby enemies while ward is not depleted. So it's just kind of reducing our damage, you know, give or take a little bit against bullets and arrows by 75%. Plus, I got a good enchantment on here on spellcast, increased gun damage by 30% for 10 seconds. So I know I've said it a million times, like once we pop the Buffmeister and our action skill, all of these things are going to be proccing and giving different bonuses to us while we're using them. On the pickaxe, we have action skill start, increased status effect, chance of damage by 20%. On spell cast, increased gun damage by 30%. On action skill start, increased damage by 20%. On spell cast, increased frost damage by 30%. On spellcast, increased damage dealt by 15%. I'm sure you guys are kind of finding a common theme here. You're going to want enchantments that proc buffs for your build, such as just overall damage or frost damage or dark magic damage on spellcast and on action skill start, since we're going to be using action skills and spells a ton. Then for the rings, I always say this in all my build videos, but they're really the least important of each thing, as they don't give super unique effects. They kind of just come with certain rolls and little modifiers to increase their gains. This one here, I'm just using because it has off the top 15% gun damage. The other rolls on this really don't even help me that much. I just like the extra 15% gun damage. And for this ring, I use it for boss fights. It rolled with 17% melee damage, which really isn't going to be a factor here. We're not going for melee damage, but whenever you damage a boss, you increase effects by 100% for a moderate amount of time, and it rolled with 14.8% pistol critical hit damage, which when we're dealing with bosses, that's going to increase to a, what's that, 29.6% pistol critical hit damage. So this is mostly just for boss fights. And like I was saying with the amulet, it's kind of hard to go out and farm for specific rings, so I'm not really gonna tell you guys to go get these exact ones, but try to make sure you're getting something along the lines of pistol critical hit damage, damage dealt, gun damage, something like that, and use your best rings in these slots for that. Once we've got that taken care of, we're going to want to head over to the skills, and I've said it like 2 or 3 times now, but we're taking from the shadows for sure, so we can do critical hits as much as we can. And the whole point of taking the Stabbomancer tree as far down as we are is to get this skill. We're going to want to get 1,000 cuts. Once we get that, we can swap over to the Graveborn tree. But to start off, we're going to be taking 5 points into Arsenal to increase it increases melee damage, which isn't super important, but it increases spell damage and gun damage. Next up, as soon as we unlock the 5 points into Arsenal, we'll take the 5 points into Swift Death. While moving, the Fate Maker gains increased damage dealt. The faster he moves, the greater the bonus. So that's really going to come into play with what I was talking about. When we pop the Buffmeister and get our extra movement speed, that's even going to increase this bonus even further. Plus my class mod gives +3 into this. And you guys can see even at just walking speed, we do an extra 16% damage. So whenever we're sprinting and shooting with the Buffmeister active, this bonus is going to be quite significant. Now once you put 5 points into here, it'll unlock this row, but we're taking neither of these. This option's not horrible, but it's again has to deal with dealing melee damage, which we're not really focusing on too much here. Same thing with this one. It's a kill skill, which increases our melee critical hit chance, makes it a guarantee. So we don't really need melee hits, let alone melee critical hits, so we're just skipping that. So we're going to come back up top, and I put 3 points into haste, which is a further movement speed and melee attack speed. Again, we don't care too much about the melee attack speed, but the faster we can move, the more damage we're going to get out of Swift Death. Once you've got 3 points into there, go ahead and throw 2 points into Potent Poisons to increase our status effect damage and duration. Since we have this armor piece adding dark magic damage to our weapons already, and we're going to be mainly using the liquid cooling, we're going to be shooting frost and dark magic at all times, so obviously status effect damage and duration is going to be helpful there. Now I know we have 4 points into this, and I said only put 2 points into it, but I'm kind of explaining as we're going so you guys can follow along. Once you have the 2 points into this next tree will unlock. Throw all 5 points you can into sneak attack, which increases critical hit damage. Don't need to explain why that one's so good. Now this is that 1 point skill that's going to allow us to sprint while we're shooting, which will pair up with Swift Death and Haste and the Buffmeister super well. At this point, 1,000 cuts should be available to be purchased. Take all 5 points into that. So what this does is increases our damage dealt per stack of 1,000 cuts. We can have up to 25 stacks, they last 12 seconds, and increase our damage by 1% per stack, meaning, and doing 25 critical hits is going to be incredibly easy, as you guys saw, so this is just an overarching 25% damage buff almost at all times. From there, we'll hop over to the Graveborn tree, put 3 points into Faithful Thralls, which increases our damage per companion. Obviously, we're not running main companion build, but since we're constantly doing dark magic damage and ability damage with all of our guns, and then most importantly, the Gluttony, we'll be summoning these Dark Hydras just passively anyway, so we can summon up to 3 of them. So with the Demi-Lich and then 3 Hydras, that's a 36% damage increase, which definitely makes it worth taking just to get down here to passively try to get some of these guys. Once you have 3 points into here, you're going to need 2 points into Essence Drain, which increases our spell cooldown rate, which will help us get our Buffmeister back a little faster. Then once you have those 5 points, the next tree will unlock. Take Dark Pact, all 5 into that. That's just another 20% dark magic damage increase. We're going to be skipping out on Harvest because this is for companions, and we'll be skipping out on Sanguine Sacrament. This helps us regenerate health whenever we cast spells, but since we're running so much dark magic damage and getting dark magic life drain off that, I went ahead and just skipped this. But once you have the 5 points into this tree will unlock, you can take 3 points into the Dark Hydra, so we can get all 3 of those to increase our damage from Faithful Thralls. And I went ahead and took Dread Covenant. So what this does is it redirects some of our damage over to our Lich Companion. So it kind of gives us just an overarching defense buff. And then whenever we reach 1 health, the Demi-Lich will restore our health and sacrifice himself, and it sacrifices him for a little bit. We have increased cooldown rates on getting him back, so he's not gone for too long, and it is a death save for us, so just another little bit of defense. At this point, I figured the only reasonable thing left was to try to buff up our health, and, you know, just defenses, just a tiny bit to try to help our survivability. And then at that point, you should have 2 points left, and I did not forget about potent poisons. I figured the status effects would be even better, so I wanted to buff that up just a little bit more once I got to the end. So I went ahead and threw 2 more points in there. That should account for all of our skill points. Obviously, max out your crit damage as much as you can, as we're constantly doing crits. Almost all of our shots are going to be crits. Our whole thing is about trying to get into the shadow thing, so that we can do only crits, so we're going to want crit damage as high as we can. And as you can see, crit chance isn't super high. Again, because the whole point of the build is to get into from the shadows, so that way our crits are guaranteed anyway. So I didn't really think there was too much of a point wasting points into crit chance, which is already, our crit chance is already pretty decent. And then whenever we're in our main ability, our main damage dealing form, we're doing guaranteed crits anyway. So I wanted to accolade those points somewhere better. I think they would be more efficient, not on crit chance. I went ahead and threw those on status damage. Like I said, we're doing 2 elements constantly. Whenever we're using our liquid cooling, we're always doing dark magic damage no matter what, and then the other element that the gun comes with. So 50% on the status damage there, I thought was really good. And then with the points I had left, I went ahead and added those to our defenses to increase our HP and ward. I didn't take attunement for the skill cooldown. Since the pickaxe runs off of a percentage based anyway, no matter what our skill cooldown would be, the pickaxe is always going to give us the same percentage back, so I didn't want to waste points in that. And intelligence with the spell cooldown, the Buffmeister is already really quick, and I just thought the points would be more efficient in something else. Not that they would be a complete waste here, but I just figured we needed some more health after using the build for a little bit. Now everybody's myth rank is going to be different. Mine's all over the place since I've been trying out and showcasing multiple builds. But for this one specifically, I'm going to recommend in your Archmage tree, running your frost damage, obviously. I'm also going to recommend upgrading your status effect chance, and then maybe third, just turn to your intelligence for that spell cooldown. In the Blade Master tree, I had dark magic damage maxed out from another build, but that's still not a bad one to take here, as well as constitution to just up your, in general, your health. In the Deadeye tree, I have magazine size, which actually isn't a great one for this build. I have this again from another build. If I were you and had a lot of points to spend, I would probably take gun damage and or fire rate. And for the Druid tree, I have luck max out because I'm quite the farmer. And honestly, that's what I'd recommend too, because there's nothing else in this tree is going to be super required to make the build work. So I just get your loot look up. With that being said, I'll go show you guys a couple bosses this week and see how this really works. We'll start off with some chance action, since he's got bone health. From the shadows, we'll start shooting, pop the Buffmeister, and there we go. Actually, if the better we move around as well, the more damage we'll do. Even without the abilities active, the liquid cooling still does a ridiculous amount. I'm also going to head over to Weep Wild Dankness, and we'll try this out on Banshee, see how we do. I actually haven't tried this out on her since I made this, so let's see if it holds up. Now for Banshee, I recommend not fighting her or like popping all your cooldowns right away. Wait till she does her first like little invincibility phase thing, and then fall back. So let's gonna wait for that. Yeah, there we go. She's gonna do that. Then once she gets back here, go ahead and pop your abilities. Make sure to stay moving so that way you're getting your damage buff, and do your best to dodge all these. Oh, I fucking jumped right into that one. Let's try Zomboss out, and then we'll find somebody that the master work will do good on, so I can showcase that for you guys. Pop this, pop that. Gotta stay moving as fast as we can. Oh, start meleeing, get our cooldown back. Yep, and there we go. Let's see if we can get a good work on our kill, since he sits in place for us with the masterwork. Let's give it a second to make sure he's damageable. There we go. Pop this, start shooting, pop that. Oh my god. As you can see at the bottom middle, we are on Chaos 20. Alright. We got that cooldown back. Let's go again. Oh, we almost got him in 2. Looks like 3 will be the charm. There we go. Phase 1 done. Go. Let's see if we can finish him off here. That was weird. And even though I was aiming right at him, and it had me reload a couple of times. As if I didn't get a crit. Pop that. Pop the Buffmeister. Yeah, and we put him down. And, well, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said at the beginning, I've got other builds up on the channel. If this one wasn't for you, if you want to see some other Graveborn stuff, I'm working on doing all of the different classes. We're still on Graveborn right now. It's gonna take a minute, but we're gonna get to it. I'd like to say thank you guys for watching. Make sure to drop a like if you did make it this far. I'm sure you must have enjoyed it at least somewhat if you're this far in. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in just in the next one. Peace out.